I'd like to welcome everyone to Lilac Springs. These are all our friends from Allegheny College, and my wife Marcia.
Hi everyone.
We made a, and I'd like to thank Armstrong also for their help at Lilac Springs. They've helped us a lot in the past. And we did a series of presentations probably about 1910 or 1910, yeah, 2010 or 2011. And so we wanted to let people know of the changes that have occurred. But I'd like Marcia to tell a little bit about the history of how Lilac Springs began and then how it evolved up to
Well, in 2001, my husband and my mother were diagnosed with cancer. And my mother did not survive, but Tony did and recovered nicely. And at that time, we talked about a dream that we wanted, and that was to have a place where people could come and relax and recuperate and regenerate and to heal. And so we purchased this property, which is adjacent to our own, and worked on it for a few years, and then started Lilac Springs. We made a presentation with the VA in Erie, and that's how we got involved with veterans. And now we have breakaways several times during the year, and we hope to start a new idea that I think Tony will talk about a little bit. But that's basically our history. And since 2008, we've had 285 individuals come out and participate. And that has included combat veterans, people that have been traumatized one way or another in the military, people who's had family members die in the line of duty, and people who have had family members that have suicided. And so what we found out is that by mixing all those individuals together, there's a great deal of healing. It's really quite wonderful. We had some a couple come up from north side Pittsburgh, and they got here at 10 o'clock in the evening on Friday evening, and just the courage that it took for them to come out to Lilac Springs at around, they didn't get here till around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And the group had already eaten, the other people had already eaten, and we provided them something to eat. And then we were meeting in a little building across the driveway, and I noticed that they weren't here. And so I walked out, and they were sitting in a little gazebo over here, and they had a candle in front of them on the table, and they said that they were thinking about their son. And so I invited them to come over to meet with the other individuals, and those individuals were primarily from a rifle platoon, and they were out of Butler County. And as we talked, the mother explained that her son had died in the line of duty. It wasn't a KIA, but he was in a war zone. And as she talked about him, this one guy who was a captain of the rifle platoon just started crying, and he started telling her how he couldn't understand how somebody could lose a child and how sad that made him. And it just generally caused a lot of emotions in the combat veterans and their partners. And so the husband of the wife said to the combat veteran, this was over the course of the weekend, and he said,
you know, we never really had an opportunity to sit and talk to any of our son's friends. We just couldn't sit and talk. But now I feel like I've met all his friends, and I know what it's like I know what the people would be like. They would be just like him. And so from that point on, we knew it was really important to provide different individuals at Breakaways. And so we've had fathers, had sons bring their fathers, we've had people bring their friends, we've had people bring their neighbors, their mothers, and these are all the people that help them through, and the people want to understand what is going on in these veterans' lives and how they can become involved. And so, I don't know, our work with Allegheny College and the students is primarily work with the students, that I don't know whether it evolved at the same point, but early on, probably about 2010, 2011, talking to a combat veteran from Vietnam, and I was saying we'd like to get more involved with Allegheny College, and he said, you know, he said, I don't know that you should do that, Tony. There's a lot of people that are anti-war, and a lot of professors and a lot of students are just anti-war. And I just didn't believe that, because Marcia and I grew up in the 60s. She graduated from college in 69, so, and I started in 63, and so we were there all through the 60s. And there were some protests on campus, but there were a lot of respectful people and a lot of respect paid to the people that were returning to school. So about that same time, I think, how were we approached by you folks? Can you?
So we became connected to Lilac Springs through Dr. Alexis Hart at Allegheny College, and Dr. Hart herself is a veteran of the Navy. She was an officer in the Navy. She was one of the only women on her ship, so she has a very unique perspective as a combat veteran, and we were lucky enough to get connected to her because, well, first of all, if I can give a little background about our organization, the Allegheny Veteran Service, which was founded at Allegheny College in 2017. It was founded between myself, my name is John Fazio, and through a conversation with a friend of mine named Jesse Tomkowitz, who is our other co-founder. He's not here right now because he's serving an internship right now in the Pennsylvania State Capitol, so he's in Harrisburg, and he's working on the Committee for Veterans Affairs. So he's taken his interest, which has been fostered and developed, or been developed and nurtured here at Lilac Springs, and he's taken what he's learned here and now he's applying it in state government, which is just incredible. So he's taking everything that we've learned from Marcia and Tony and all the beautiful lessons we've learned from working with combat veterans ourselves, and now we have a chance to kind of spread our ideas out into public life, which is really exciting. And the root of this organization was, Jesse and I have been friends since we entered Allegheny College. But we have very different political beliefs, and we said, it's disappointing that there isn't something in society that people really rally around in a nonpartisan fashion. Well, we said, if there's one thing we can all rally around, it better be our veterans. So, Jesse had family who served. His father served, his grandfather served, I believe his grandmother served as well. Both of my grandfathers served during the Korean conflict. I have a great-grandfather who served in World War I. So we recognized that our career paths weren't likely to take us to the military, yet we wanted to show our appreciation for all the people who have made that sacrifice in lieu of us. So Allegheny College, we're very fortunate to go to a place where it's easy to start a student organization. So we just got some people together, and we got people like Lena involved and Nye, and we got a lot of interest initially, which was really nice because it only took 5 or 6 or 7 people to get on board, and we were connected to Dr. Hart, who said, I think one of the best resources you can partner with in the community is Lilac Springs, and it's kind of everything's been great ever since.
She invited us to make a presentation to her one class, I think it was a freshman class.
Mm-hmm.
Were you involved?
I was there, yeah.
I didn't know you were in that class. That's really cool.
It was a great class, yeah.
Did I really impress you?
You did.
And why don't you tell them a little bit about your background and how you have an interest in that area and
Yeah, so I originally, before I came to Allegheny, I was part of the U.S. Naval Sea Cadet Band, the West. That was a youth program affiliated with the Navy, and I've been in that band for 7 years. And when that ended, I wanted to continue my community service by helping veterans at Allegheny, but I wasn't exactly sure how to do that until I was talking to Professor Hart, who's my advisor, and she says, hey, there's this really cool organization, Allegheny Veteran Service, that's starting up. I think you should really check it out. So I talked to John and Jesse, and here we are. I really enjoy working with them, and it's been a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, and now you're our other co-president. So.
Oh, congratulations, Lena. Good for you.
and Nye.
Oh man. So I'm a freshman, and we had this little involvement fair where you go meet different clubs. And Jesse and Lena, I didn't really want to be there, and Jesse and Lena, they like called me over and it's like, oh, do you like veterans? I'm like, yeah. So I signed up. I went to the meetings. I liked everybody's like I don't know, it's like connection with each other, and like I was like, oh, these people can potentially be my friends. And then I just like coming here and meeting Tony and Marcia, and I was like, this is something I could see me doing. And like I have people that were like in my family that went to war, and my brother's currently serving in the Navy, so I was like, I can do this.
You know, one of the really rewarding things is to be able to talk sincerely and conversationally with individuals that have been traumatized through war, and but that ends up being a very small part of it's like the icing on the cake, and the cake isn't always that nice. Can you tell them some of the stuff you have to do when you volunteer? I know you thought you'd be working with vets a whole lot, but probably 1%, not even 1%, is actual working with combat veterans. Give them an idea of some of the things you do.
So it's absolutely true that the working with the veterans is kind of the reward at the end of the road. Because when we started this organization, we knew we just want to support veterans in any way we could, and we were so excited to know about Lilac Springs because of the incredible things that you do for veterans here and their families. And the way Dr. Hart pitched it to us was, this couple, they could use help maintaining the property because it's just the two of them. They don't have a staff. It's a nonprofit. So they said that. So Dr. Hart said if they had an organization like yourselves to help them on a frequent basis, that would be an incredible help to them. And because you have such a nice property here, and you have such wonderful ambitions for it. So any way that we can help you achieve those ambitions is fantastic. So when we come out here, like we said, like I said previously, every weekend we're out here to support you in any way we can. So various projects that you were alluding to, I've been beating around the bush, but we do them with a smile on our face, though, I like to think. One such project was when we actually, we basically, I can't think of the word right now, but paved the road into Lilac Springs by hand, right? Because there were a bunch of potholes. Because we had a really rough winter with a lot of precipitation, and we didn't have gravel, so we just got a lot of dirt and we filled every pothole manually.
And you learn what a pick was and a mattock.
Exactly.
And a digging bar and a spade and a flat shovel.
It's an educational experience in a lot of ways. You teach us a lot about tools and how to work outside, and all the tricks of the trade, but also about how to work with traumatized individuals.
Well, I was saying that a lot of times people don't come dressed to work in slop either. And it is, and then really the nice thing is, the wonderful thing is, we have said a lot of times, to the girls, would you rather work inside, because there's a lot of stuff to do inside, and it's just like, no, I want to go out in the mud. I want to go out in the mud.
The ladies get their hands dirty.
It is muddy.
It gets real muddy, especially in the winter, which is the majority of the time we're out here is during the winter months. I remember Jesse and I, one of our favorite projects was when we had to dig to find that pipe.
Yeah.
We just dug and we dug and we dug and we dug and we dug for at least 2 hours.
Yeah. Well,
we never found
2 hours, 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. It was, we came back in succession and tried to find that darn that pipe that carried the water to the house, and then it was like, well, it's not here, I guess. But we have fun with it. We enjoy ourselves.
Right, and then we are working on a new building, and there is just so much, and a lot of it's hemlock lumber, really heavy and wet, and tons of it. And they've carried it piece by piece by piece and stacked it, and then it would dry, and we say, well, now it's in the way, you have to move it, and so they'd move it to another part, and it's okay, we've finished that area over there, now you have to move it back to the area that it was, and take some of the stuff here and move it over there, and so it's just, the amount of work that ends up being done is phenomenal, and we wouldn't be able to have gotten any of it done, and there continues to be an equal amount of work to do. So, what can you tell the people about maybe the first breakaway you attended, what you remember, what you thought, what you anticipated? Because like everybody else, these combat veterans, they're very frightened to come here because we don't tell them anything, and that's just part of it. It's just like it's just an opportunity to have a breakaway. It's an opportunity to meet other people. It's an opportunity to relax, and so and that's what we basically told you. And so you have to come in. So what was it like for you to to come to your first breakaways?
It was an astounding experience because, the breakaway, and this is what people might not understand, is that it is so thoughtfully designed, and there is so much time and effort into planning them. Yet, if you're a veteran or a family member or a caretaker attending a breakaway, you would think that there was no structure, that it was, we're just here to do nothing. And that is true, because within that nothingness, that's where the magic happens, truly. That's where therapy happens. And they don't even know they're, being really changed or transformed, but they are, just by forming those connections and the bonds they do at breakaways. And it was just incredible because here I am, a college student, with no previous experience with combat veterans, no previous experience knowing these people that attend the breakaway on a personal level. And here they are, after an hour or so of knowing them, sharing the most intimate stories of their lives, the most intimate traumas. And it's a privilege, and it's an honor, because who am I to hear these stories? Who am I to have knowledge of this person's trauma? And yet the things they tell you are things they hadn't even maybe told their spouse for 30 years, or hadn't ever, even confronted themselves. So it's just an incredible experience, and it truly is, like I said, a privilege and an honor. And the most incredible thing that ever happened at a breakaway for me personally was when a veteran thanked me for being there. And that took me back, because I said, no, I'm here because I feel a sense of gratitude towards you, mm-hmm. Yet you're thanking me, mm-hmm. Which to me was just really overwhelming. And it's incredible, the mutual appreciation that exists at a breakaway.
Yeah, I agree with everything that John said.
Yeah, you have to add to it.
Yeah. I have had previous experiences talking with veterans and listening to their stories. After playing music, we'd go and just sit with them and talk with them for half hour, anything like that. But I think one of the things that young people don't really grasp until they come to a breakaway is all you have to do is you just have to have an open mind and empathy, and you just have to sit there and talk with them and just listen to their stories. And it means so much just to have that open space for them to talk. I think it's one of the most valuable things you can have when going to a breakaway and experiencing that connection with someone else.
Absolutely.
I know you haven't had any experience, but you know, this is the year. You know, you're no longer a rookie.
Right.
And I graduated from high school with a guy who's very supportive of what we do, and he was an excellent football player in college, and had an opportunity, had a bid to play in the pros, and I invited him and his wife to come to a breakaway because they've really been supported, and he said to me, I would never know what to say. And what happens is a lot of the combat veterans, a lot of the citizens will say, I wouldn't know what to say to them. And I think that you summed it up very well, you know. And then the combat veterans will say they could never understand what I went through, and they can't understand what I went through, and the citizens are saying we can't understand what they went through, and there's this, they perceive a barrier. Did you experience that barrier? What did it take to break down the barrier? When you think back, what did it take to break down the barrier?
You know, I never really felt a barrier, which was the really special thing about it, because I think that barrier is just naturally broken down just in the environment that's created at a breakaway.
Okay.
Because it's so inviting, and it's such a secure environment where people feel, you know, supported, that I think it just really naturally flows. And like you said, I also, you know, wasn't sure what would I say, you know, to a combat veteran who had experienced trauma, you know, because I think, like you said, citizens often want to search for the perfect thing to say, like as a quote, or, you know, something that they can kind of recite on memory, where all you have to do, like Lena said so perfectly, is just be there, be present, and just bring your empathy, and nothing else is necessary. Because when they sense that you truly do have a sense of empathy for them, and you care about them, then that
well, what is that empathy? Because a lot of people, I know that's a word, but what do you think they sense? What is it they sense about you?
Well, that you're there in the first place, and
okay, stop. You're there.
yes,
You showed
there
up.
and you're present.
You showed up.
In the moment. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's what it takes, just showing up.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just like, I don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know what's going to happen. And the reverse side of that we've talked about a lot is when people go into combat, you can have your basic training, you can have your advanced training, you can have, you know, post-advanced training, and you take those basic skills into combat, and that's all those skills have done is tune your instrument. They're giving you the basics, but when you get in there, you've got to adapt, and you've got to, and we talk about, you've got to pick up the rhythm of combat. You've got to pick up the flow, and we compare it to jazz. That, you know, you have to be you're a skilled musician. You bring some musician skills, but you never know what's going to happen. And when you show up, and you walk in, and generally they're eating, or and they want, and like anything else, they, you know, eat, you know, get something to eat too, you know, and the only one who doesn't eat is Jesse, you know. And so it is one of the things. Let me build on. Let me just jump off from this point. That what I think the three of you are are what we like to call, critical links. And there's this, you have community over here and you have combat over here, and they're separated. And there are critical links. And now the buzz phrase in therapy, particularly with anybody that's traumatized, is trauma-informed care. Once you understand the toll that trauma takes on kids, on adults, what combat takes, then you're better informed to do what you do as a psychologist, and what you do as a social worker, what you do as a counselor. But that's trauma-informed care. But there's also a need for trauma-informed caring. And this is trauma-informed communities. And nowhere in the history of human existence have we paid people to be kind and caring. You just don't care for people that have been, you don't pay for them to be cared for. You care for them because they're fellow human beings. And so the only way that that's going to happen is human-to-human connection. And professionals can connect on a caring, empathic way, but they don't do it just out of kindness. You put in here innumerable hours of work, and then you come. And one of the things that you usually show up on Saturday evening. And what have they said about you showing up on Saturday evening?
They can't believe college students are here on a Saturday night. They it almost freaks them out a little bit, to be quite frank, because they're like, really, you're here on a Saturday night? So is it? Yeah. Am I mistaken? Is this a Wednesday?
Yeah.
They're really shocked that it's a weekend, and yet we're here.
Right. And that is, and I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. Continuously wonderfully surprised that you'll take time out on Sunday afternoons. It doesn't make any difference on the most spectacular, I was going to say the most spectacular fall afternoons, but they're usually muddy and rainy. They aren't spectacular. But there's really some nice days, and groups of people, and you will show up, and that's really just a wonderful thing. And so one of the things that that we've talked about is creating, you don't have to enter into psychology, medicine, social work to help veterans in their lives. And we've talked about creating informed businesses and informed organizations and informed leaders. Does anybody want to talk about, what you might think it would take to hire a veteran? Because you've seen some pretty big, powerful people that just have difficulties and they just can't get back. And I don't know if you want to talk about any of that, how it might alter your view as business people, as attorneys, as teachers.
It's a great question. So how we can better inform
what type of organizations do
institutions?
these people need to be hired into? If somebody's a police officer and they find out that the person they've arrested is a combat veteran, if somebody's an attorney and they find out somebody's a combat veteran, are these people different from other people that are being arrested or applying for a job?
Well, certainly I think so, because those people have things that can trigger traumatic flashbacks and things like that. That if you didn't know someone was a combat veteran, you wouldn't be aware of that. But any number of sensations, from noises to feelings to anything, can really trigger those horrible memories. And I think it's vital that, like you said, a police officer, or for example a medical doctor, when you're dealing with someone who has experienced combat and has experienced that trauma, then they do need to be treated with a certain level of care that
Go
is
ahead.
informed.
Yeah. What about a fellow workers? What about their fellow workers? Should organizations be aware that there's a combat veteran
Absolutely.
working? Why?
That's the stump question. I know it, I just don't know how to articulate it.
Well, I think it would be pertinent for workers to be aware, but not be overbearing about
Right.
the subject. Just be
Exactly.
casually aware and maybe watch for a few things and just have a little more attention to that, but make them feel comfortable at
Right.
the same time.
Right.
So I think that's kind of a balance between knowing that information and then how to what to do with that
Mhm.
information after.
And that's the thing, have it in the back of your mind, but veterans are, by their way of being and by way of their experience, very proud people, and they deserve to be proud people, in terms, personally and otherwise. So they don't want to be treated as if they are special or unique, because they're already, I believe, somewhat conscious of that, and that's part of their trauma in a way, is they know that they've been altered, by their experience. So they don't want to be, as you said, Lena, treated in a way that is unique from the rest of the organization. But yeah, if you approach them with those sensitivities in mind, you're going to enhance their experience and the experience of the organization.
Well, how would you approach them?
I like Lena's approach, just like anybody else.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I do when I go and talk with someone who's a veteran. I just go and talk, and then the conversation
You
starts
explained
going.
it. That's what, when you show up for a breakaway,
Yeah.
you just sit and,
Yeah.
you talk, and, and it just, are you doing okay? Because, and I think that organizations have to, and I think there have to be programs developed where organizations be informed caring, where they would have to say, we want the organization to know that you're a combat veteran. We want them, and we want the organization to be receptive to you. One of the things about trauma-informed caring is these people who have been, individuals who have been traumatized, they are either in states of continuous arousal, or they're in states of shutdown physically. One's sympathetic nervous system arousal, one is parasympathetic, one is shut down. So they'll go through periods of being shut down and overly aroused, and those are in ancient parts of our brain, and there's a toll. When those are overactive, the higher cortical functions, the planning, the person might know exactly what needs to be done next at their new job. They don't know how to take that next step, and they can be very much embarrassed. They could, they could just walk away because out of embarrassment. These are individuals that, when we think of post-traumatic stress disorder, it isn't everything that we think about. It's the inability many times to do simple tasks. And if you understand that's trauma-informed care, that's a lot of that higher functioning is offline, and we can help them bring that back online. One of the things that one of the things that Armstrong does is service dogs, and it takes a lot of training to do a service dog, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. And a service dog is going to perform a very specific service, and they're able to do that when they're working. And I'd like to be able to have an individual, some veterans come in that have service dogs, and individual veterans that you've met also, and but we've truly got to create service human beings. It's just like we're the pinnacle. And if it is just like, what service, and that is what I like about the name of your organization. It isn't the Allegheny Veteran Service Project, it isn't the Allegheny Veteran Service Corps, it's the Allegheny Veterans Service. We're service human beings. We're served as human beings. And we've lost that. We knew what to do historically. We knew what to do culturally, whether it was from Africa or Italy or what's your ancestry?
Sweden.
Huh? San Francisco.
San Francisco.
They knew what to do, you know. And I told you I had an Aunt Lena, and I always think you're Italian, you know. And but culturally, we knew what to do. And I think what happened historically after the Civil War, there were so many wounded people that the Veterans Hospital Administration was created to care for all of the numerous people. And in the process of creating professional care, I think the community was taken out of the equation. And the only way that we're going to truly meet all their needs is for businesses, for the neighborhood. We've talked to know this. My mother made sure I knew who everybody in our neighborhood. My mother made sure that I knew who everybody in that area was that served in World War II, and she just and she would just discuss it, and so everybody in the community knew that. And but now there's a whole lot of anonymity. That's a long word, you know, and a lot of the people are anonymous. A lot of people don't know what to do, and it isn't always about parades. It's knowing that these people, that the main caretaker is their partner, as their support person, and that gets very, very, very tiring, and because this is a lot of times it's continuous, and it's so continuous that they become support. They become main source of support. They have to quit their jobs, and you know there are benefits that are paid them, but that isn't a kind human being just showing up saying, you know, what, not showing up saying what can I do, is showing up, and you'll find out what to do. You know, if you show up and you say, what can I do, like when people show up at Lilac Springs, they'll say, what can I do to help out? And I'll say, well, look around. And it's the same thing. If you show up and you just say, can I fix that gutter? Can I fix those potholes? Can I do this? Can I do that? You know, and a lot of times you'll find out that their houses are impeccable. The landscape is impeccable, and it might be, hey, can I show up and we can just sit down and talk? And you know, because they might be dealing with their trauma by having everything so organized. And is there anything, I've been talking a whole lot here, what do you want to add?
Well, I was thinking the one time that all of you came to the breakaway, and one veteran said to me, what are they doing here? And I said, well, they...
Who are they?
Who are they?
Yeah, who are
those people? And I don't know if it was you, Tony, that said, well, they're Allegheny students that help us out. And immediately their facial expression changed, and they were almost thrilled to find that a college student was interested in them, because they didn't believe that they would be, and that somebody cared about them to come to meet them and to hear their story. And so they were happy to tell their story. And I think it was therapeutic for them to do that too, to find someone who they never believed cared about them, to care about them, and they could tell their story.
Yeah, and it was Chris.
Right.
Okay, it was Chris. And he I can't believe that. And so he just came out and started talking. He came out and just started talking to you. And then you know, he was struggling to make sure he chose the right words, and then, you know, he put his head down and walked outside, and I might have told you this, but he said, I made a fool out of myself in there. You know, I just made a fool out of myself. And he hadn't. He stumbled over a couple words, and that nobody really noticed, and he said, you know, I just made a fool out of myself. And I said, you know, no, you didn't. And you know, you did wonderfully, and you know, you're not a public speaker, and you weren't speaking. You were just talking to them. And so he came back in and sat there for the rest of the evening, and it was just really, really nice.
And he continued to add to his story. It wasn't that he just sat there. I think he participated all evening, and you know, I think it was good for him, and it was good for all of us.
I hope, you know, we hope to have him come down, and you know, and it's not just to tell, it's not telling his history, because that was a word that I was thinking, we've got to come up with a better word, because we don't want him to tell, we don't want him to tell us his story, because it's not a story, you know, it's just like I want to tell you a story. It's just explaining his life, and what he explained to us at one point was, in Iraq, you had to get from at any combat zone, you have to get from a point A to point B. And if you were driving out to Conneaut Lake, your orders are to stay 15 yards apart, 20 yards apart. And then if you're, if an IED blows up the vehicle in front of you, yours isn't completely damaged, and you're not allowed to stop. Because if you stop, you're sitting target, and you will be blown up. And then he said that you're ordered not to stop, and if it's a dog, you don't stop. And he said, you know, if you have ever hit a dog, you know what that bump feels like, and you hate it, you know. And he said we couldn't stop, and there would be people that would try to run across the road. There would be kids that would try to run across the road. But we knew that they were told to run across the road, and they were forced to run across the road. And for the rest of my life, I have to deal with that bump that will always be with me. And it's all of these things that we're unaware of. But when they try to make you understand that, and you sit and listen to that, what they're doing is explaining it to themselves. Okay. There's a phenomenon that I like to call Maytag thinking, and that's our thoughts tumble. You know, if we could solve our problems by thinking about them, they'd all be solved. Okay. But they tumble through our minds, and we never stop. And so we talk to ourselves from the middle of the sentence out, backwards, vertically, piece by piece. But when I have to explain something to you, I've got to hang them on a clothesline and state them in a way that you'll understand. And by doing that, I understand. There was a play on Broadway where the character said, how do I know what I'm thinking until I've heard what I said? And so by them talking out loud, by that you giving them an opportunity to talk out loud, they can hear what they're saying for the first time. And we've got to do that as a society.
I think it's interesting too, because it isn't always the thing that the worst thing that brings their trauma to the surface. Sometimes it's something that totally unrelated to the war, but they happen to notice it whenever they're experiencing the trauma. I had talked to someone who he can't ride in the country because he can't look at cows. And he was a Vietnam veteran, and his trauma, there were cows in the picture that he remembers. And so whenever he sees a cow, that brings that trauma right to his forefront, right to the front. And so he just doesn't go for rides in the country. And that's his way of dealing
and this
with
is
it.
there's nothing asked. We never asked for information. And that in Vietnam, they would drop leaflets. And if you didn't see a leaflet, they would just say, we're coming through, and we're going to clear this area, and anybody that remains is a Viet Cong. And so in their killing, he killed a lot of cows, and he said they were just mooing and dying. And he hadn't told anybody that for 35 or 40 years. And he said it and walked away, he left. And so, we don't know what, what happened, but it was something that he just had to tell people. So, one of the things that soldiers will talk about are the 1%ers. And the 1% are the 1% of the people that served, and then 1% of the population that served, and then I think that there's 1% of the people that served that probably end up in combat. And I think that's the same that happens with volunteer organizations, that you might end up with 25 or 30 people, or people really wanting to show up. There's 1% that keeps showing up, and I think that that's really important to realize and never get discouraged. There's some more 1%ers out there, and you have to seek them out, and maybe we can help you do that. Maybe we'll have a picnic out here for just the people that want to contribute. Nye, anything to add, or?
I like this place. That's it.
Did you have relatives or that served in the military at all, or what?
Yeah, my granddad, he was in Vietnam. My uncle, he was in, I actually don't know. And then my brother, he's in the Navy right now. So yeah.
Yeah, and it alters their perspective on life, and because they see the world more guardedly. I would say, when I would do therapy and when I talk to a lot of parents, if you saw a doe standing in the middle of the road and it was a foggy night and you could see headlights coming through the fog, and the car couldn't see the deer, but the deer would be staring at those headlights coming in the fog, and if there was a fawn there, what would the fawn be staring at?
His mother.
His mother. And if she jumps, the baby will jump. If she stands there, the baby will stand there, and you'll see the doe and the fawn together. Because we have to learn to see life through the eyes of the adults around us. And so your grandpa did affect his children, and then that affects you, and same with your parents. And so it's really important that we as communities be aware of that. And it's just an exciting. There used to be. There is a book, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. Well, it takes a village to help combat veterans too.
Well, I think this concludes our presentation. I want to thank all the students from Allegheny and thank them also for all the help that they do for us, because I know we would not be able to continue our service without them. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Marcia.
Marcia.
And we're very grateful to be here.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thank you. So this is for Tony and myself, and I appreciate you watching and look forward to having you see us again sometime soon.